Hello chess friends, welcome to another fantastic chess game video, and we have Magnus Carlsen with white pieces and Maxime Vachier Lagrave with black pieces. Let's get started. Knight to f3 was Carlsen's first move, and knight to f6 Maxime replies. g3 and b5, we have this very crazy opening. Maxime is playing b5 on the second move against Carlsen. Bishop to g2 and bishop to b7. Now these light squares are looking one on each other and fighting for h1 a8 diagonal. Knight to a3, another crazy move in the opening. Well, Carlsen always likes to play crazy openings when his opponents are playing some out of standard moves. Well, black played b5, Carlsen is going to play knight to a3. This move, of course, has idea in it, because if white played knight to c3, after move b4 this knight doesn't have any good squares to retreat. But now if black plays b4, this knight can jump to c4, which will be totally okay for white. That's why MVL is playing a6 and Carlsen plays c4. Now you see another idea of move knight a3. It supports c4 movement. Again, if black is taking on c4, this knight jumps to the center with the tempo. Maxime played b4, and this knight retreats to c2, fighting for the center and attacking b4 pawn at the same time. e6, defending b4 pawn, and d4. Now this game is more like Indian game, King's Indian game, and black is playing a5, wasting another tempo, pushing the pawns on queen side. Carlsen castles and black is playing bishop to e7. Well, black just given away a tempo with this move a5, and now black didn't castle, steal his king. That's why Carlsen is playing d5, very active move. d5 has a good idea in it. Now white wants to play rook to e1 and push e4, which will give a very nice position to white. That's why black is not castling but playing this crazy knight to a6 move, which has of course the idea in it, playing knight to c5 and defending e4 square. White plays knight to d4, again white's idea to push e4. Black is playing knight to c5, attacking e4 square and rook to e1. As you can see, the last moves were all about this square e4, which is crucial in the game. Now black has no other ways to defend e4 square. That's why black is castling and e4. Now white's position is much more pleasant. White is threatening to push even e5. That's why Maxime was forced to play e5, which of course is weakening this light square on f5. And after move knight to f5, black has huge problems with this knight on f5, which is of course supporting the attack on king side very well. Black played d6, and Carlsen continues with another active move, bishop to g5. It is of course a good idea to exchange this dark square bishop with this knight on f6 in these type of positions where the bishop on e7 has no good squares. It is all blocked with its own pawns, so c7, d5, e5, d6, e5, all the pawns are on dark squares, and this bishop on e7 now is a very bad piece. Now in this position, MVL tried to play active. He found the tactical solution of this problem, trading the e7 bishop. Well, as he thought he found this tactical solution. He took on d5, but of course white is not going to take on e7. White has this very beautiful move, bishop to h6. Well, first of all, now white gains back the material. Second of all, white is not trading the dark square bishops. Now black is forced to take on h6 and queen to g4 check first. Now the king cannot go to h8 because queen g7 checkmate. Black's only move is bishop g5, and Carlsen takes on d5 with the c pawn. Now of course black is a pawn up, but that pawn on h6 doesn't really count for a pawn. And now white is threatening move h4, and also you can see that the knight on f5 now cannot be removed with the pawns, which is very bad for black. Black's only move is king to h8, getting away from g line, h4, bishop f6, defending g7 square, and knight to e3. Carlsen didn't want to take on h6 because, as you can see, the pawn on h6 is not really doing much, but Carlsen rather decided to play knight to e3, supporting the f5 knight. And now when black is playing bishop to c8, black doesn't want to take on f5 because he will not get rid of that knight on f5. Queen to f3, another fantastic move by a world chess champion. Now he's freeing this g4 square, and maybe knight will jump to g4 at some point. Bishop goes to back to g7, defended h6 pawn, but the real idea is not to defend that pawn, but to have this queen f6 move coming, and the queen from f6 will be defending black king very well. Bishop to h3. Again, we see that light square bishops on the same diagonal fighting for light squares. Rook to g8 and bishop to g4, another good move. With the move rook to g8, black has weakened this pawn on f7, and now this bishop is simply going to h5, attacking f7 pawn. Queen to f6 and bishop to h5. Now white is making some pressure on f7 as well as threatening knight to g4 move, and the queen on f6 doesn't feel safe at all. Thus black is forced to take on f5, so after white takes on f5 with the knight, now there is no more knight to g4 move. At least the queen is feeling safe on f6. And c6. Well, it is always a good idea trying to open up the center when your opponent is attacking your king. D takes c6, rook to c8, and queen to d1, another brilliant move by Magnus Carlsen. This queen on f3 was not participating in the game anymore, but now this queen has this very beautiful square on d5, attacking f7 pawn. Rook to c6 and queen to d5, attacking both the rook and the pawn. And black forced to play rook to c8 because black couldn't retreat with this rook on c6. The rook is defending d6 pawn. Rook to d1. Well, Carlsen is not rushing with taking on f7. He is attacking d6 pawn one more time. Bishop to f8. Well, this bishop, of course, is very bad now. It has no good squares. It is blocked again by black pawns, but at least it can defend these pawns. And now queen takes f7, and Carlsen, as always, wants to go to endgame because he's the best endgame player in the world. Queen takes f7, bishop takes f7. Now black king is not that vulnerable, but this endgame is just horrible for black. Material wise it is equal, but pawns on h7 and h6 doesn't give a lot to black. Knight to a4. Well, black is trying to be active on queen side at least. Rook to e2 and rook to c1. Black wants to trade the pair of rooks. Rook takes c1 and king to g2. Well, now as you can see, a few pieces left on the board. d6 and h6 pawns are very weak, but defended by the bishop on f8. Black has some weaknesses, but seems that black is able to defend all of them. Knight goes back to c5, b3, and rook to c3. Now white is improving the position. King to h3. Now this king can go to g4. Knight goes back to d7, bishop e6, and knight to c5. Of course, black would be very happy to make a draw in this position, but Carlsen is now repeating the position. Bishop to d5. Knight goes back to d7. This knight wants to go to f6, trying to control d5 square. Knight to e3. Well, now this knight can jump to d5 or to c4. Both squares are just great for this knight. Knight to f6, bishop to e6, and rook comes back to c5, defending a5 pawn. Knight to c4, and now everything is defended in black's position. King to g7 and f3. First of all, white is defending this pawn on e4, and now white is threatening to play rook to d2. Knight to e8, defending d6 pawn beforehand and giving some space for black king. rook to d2, and knight to c7, attacking the bishop on e6. Bishop comes back to g4. Carlsen didn't play bishop f5, and that's kind of weird, but anyways. a4. Well, black decided to give away this weak pawn on d6, but at least this gives black opportunity to get rid of the dark square bishop that was that bad. Now white is a pawn up with this very strong bishop against the knight. a3. Well, this is what Maxime was hoping. Now a2 pawn is very weak. Rook to c2 is a threat, taking on a2 and having this really strong pass pawn on a3. Well, Carlsen plays bishop to d7, and after move rook to c2, Carlsen plays bishop to c6. Now white has a threat of playing rook to d7 check, and black doesn't have really any way to defend this. Knight a6 may be the only move, but again that's not going to work out for black, because bishop d5, knight c5, rook to c6, that knight is being pinned, and Maxime decided to give away that very bad knight here, and he just took on a2. He is hoping that this pawn on a3 will be very strong. Rook to d7 check, and now king to f6 is a very horrible move. King on f6 doesn't feel safe, and it has some problems, as you are going to find out in a few moves. Well, Carlsen first of all takes this knight, rook to c2, pinning the bishop and the rook, and now black is threatening to play a2. Carlsen has now this very fantastic move, rook takes h7, and black cannot take on c6 because rook to h6, and now you can see that the king on f6 is misplaced. Black was forced to play king to g6. Well, if in this position black is trying to play a2, Carlsen will simply play rook to a7, rook takes c6, rook takes a2, and that rook endgame with 2 extra pawns is just winning for white. Of course, black can continue with rook c3, taking on b3, but that rook endgame is just very easily winning for white. That's why we'll try to play king to g6, and now rook to c7. Again, black cannot play a2 because of bishop to e8 check, king to f6, and white is not taking the rook but playing rook to a7, and black cannot promote a queen. Again, Maxime has to go away from this light square, not giving a check from for this bishop c6. And now another fantastic move by chess champion, h5. And now again, if black is trying to play a2, rook a7, and very good position for white, just winning endgame. And we'll try to play rook to c1. Now he wants to play a2 and a1, promoting white has to give away a rook for stopping that pawn. But now in this position, Carlsen had another fantastic idea how to deal with this. He played rook to h7. Now, of course, white doesn't want to take on h6. White has other threat. Black cannot take on c6, so black's only idea is to push this pawn to a2. But now Carlsen is not trying to stop this pawn, but he's playing this phenomenal move, bishop to d5, and it turns out that the king on f6 has nowhere to run. It will be checkmated very soon, and that was the reason that black resigned here. Let's say that Envil tried to promote a queen here. Carlsen will simply play rook to f7, king to g5, and rook to f5, checkmate. And this will be very beautiful. I hope you guys enjoyed this crazy chess game that both super grandmasters played for us. Thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel so you have the opportunity to see more interesting chess videos every day. This was Michael with you. See you in my next videos. Bye.